On March 20th, 2023, Andy Kaufman, it was announced that he will be the third inductee into the 2023 WWE Hall of Fame. And now I have some questions for Big Lan about Andy Kaufman. Now, Lan, more of a wrestling fan, not necessarily a big Andy Kaufman fan, but I tried to stick to a lot of his wrestling career, I should say, when it comes to a lot of these questions. But the first one actually doesn't have to do with wrestling. Who played Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon?
That would be James Carey.
James Carey, I see, was originally billed on In Living Color, by the way. But there's a great documentary as well. It's called Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond. It has current interviews and it all, from 20 years after making the movie, and then it also has behind-the-scenes footage of making the movie. So if you liked Man on the Moon, definitely go check out Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond. Question number 2. You are 1 for 1. Who was Andy Kaufman's big wrestling rival?
That would be Jerry the King Lawler.
Jerry the King Lawler is correct. Although in real life, Andy and Jerry were friends, but during the filming of Man on the Moon, Jim Carrey would constantly taunt and aggravate Lawler, like nonstop. There's a lot of interviews. You can find them. I just watched one where Lawler is on with Stone Cold, and they're talking about that and how it really kind of irritated Lawler, how Jim Carrey was. All right, 2 for 2. Here's number 3. Kaufman ended up in the Memphis wrestling circuit with Lawler, but who did he first pitch his idea to?
Jerry Jarrett?
No, it was not Jerry Jarrett, but that's a great poll because there was, I think I left that one question out, but no, it was Vince McMahon Sr. The elder McMahon didn't want to bring show business to his pro wrestling society. That was actually the reasoning why. All right, 2 for 3. Number 4, what title did Andy Kaufman claim was his?
Best wrestler in the universe?
It was the Intergender Championship. Remember his whole thing was he would wrestle women. And going back to the whole thing with Jerry the King Lawler, it wasn't revealed until 10 years after Kaufman's death that they were actually friends and it was all a work. Up until then, people legitimately thought that they hated each other, which kind of goes back to the thing with Jim Carrey and how he would taunt Lawler on the set of Man on the Moon, because Lawler, in the one interview I watched with Stone Cold, he's like, I don't know if Jim went and watched any of the stuff or he knew that we were actually friends, but he certainly didn't act like it because he just would bug the hell out of him. All right, 2 for 4. Here's number 5. What major injury did Kaufman claim to have during his feud with Lawler?
Broken neck. A broken freaking neck.
A broken freaking neck. This came after a fight on the David Letterman show. And even though it was planned, and I put planned kind of in quotes because, at least according to Jerry Lawler's book and stuff, they knew what they were doing, but like wrestling, you kind of know certain things, but a lot of it's improvised at the time. So Kaufman really was hurt. St. Francis Hospital stated that Kaufman's injuries were real, and they were. But in Lawler's biography, he explains everything in that book from the angle that they took, how they kept it quiet, how they exaggerated it. It was a great read on how they handled a lot of those things. And again, like I just said, until 10 years after Kaufman passed away, people legitimately thought Lawler and Kaufman hated each other. All right, you are now 3 for 5. Here's number 6. Andy Kaufman's favorite wrestler was... I have it in here. I was going to see if you could guess. This isn't the actual question.
It's... Can I get a hint?
Who do you think? So this isn't actually question number 6.
Yeah.
But I was going to see if you could just guess who his favorite wrestler was. Yeah.
Okay.
We have talked about this wrestler in previous videos, but the video wasn't about this wrestler.
Weird. Killer Kowalski?
No. That would have been dope, though. No, it was Nature Boy Buddy Rogers.
Buddy Rogers? Okay.
And that was his favorite wrestler. And there was even a story about how one time when Nature Boy Buddy Rogers lost, Kaufman he didn't take it personally, but he took it really hard. And he wouldn't watch for a while because he was so heartbroken that Buddy Rogers lost. But that's not the question. The question is, who was Andy Kaufman's biggest influence? Hint, it is not a wrestler. Big time performer, though.
Elvis Presley?
Did you get the hint? Did you get the hint? Did you get the hint? That was the hint. Yeah, that was the hint. Yeah, it was Elvis Presley. And there was a moment on Saturday Night Live when he was impersonating Elvis, but ended up breaking character in the middle of the bit because he disagreed with the portrayal of the king. The skit was going to end with Presley instructing two women from the audience to go backstage and wrestle in the mud topless. And Kaufman was not a fan of that. Now, Kaufman was such a good Elvis impersonator that he was Elvis's favorite impersonator, apparently.
Yeah.
That's not anything I knew until I started doing the research for this thing. Now, final question here. This one not really having to do with wrestling. And since Alan has not seen Man on the Moon, he may or may not get this one. But you are, 4 for 6 right now? So here we go. Number 7. During a filming of Fridays, this was a late-night comedy show on ABC back in the early 80s, kind of meant to compete with Saturday Night Live. Obviously, this aired on Friday. Kaufman broke character when he was supposed to be playing someone who is stoned. There are two couples having dinner. Kaufman is one husband, and in Man on the Moon, the other husband is played by Norm Macdonald. Who was the other husband in real life? He ended up having a fairly successful career. No, actually not fairly. He was very successful on a sitcom. And then it kind of all came crashing down on him when he dropped the N-word.
I have no idea.
Michael Richards, a.k.a. Kramer from Seinfeld. Kramer. So you can find... There's really good videos on YouTube if you want to go check them out where they do side-by-side comparisons from this is what it looked like in Man on the Moon and this is what it looked like in real life. And they do compare those together. Now, the details of what actually went on during this filming of Fridays, it's still a bit foggy as to who knew what was going on and what was supposed to happen. Richards, Kramer, he claims that he knew what was going to happen, Kaufman knew what was going to happen, and co-producer Jack Burns knew what was going to happen, and that was it. But since then, other people have come out and said that, yes, I knew what was going to happen, or, this person knew what was going to happen, or nobody knew what was going to happen. So it's still a little bit foggy right there. But of course, if this is your first kind of introduction to Andy Kaufman, thank you for being here and clicking on the video, by the way, because I was assuming that the people who knew Andy Kaufman would click on this. But if this is your first introduction, he was a prankster. He was a jokester. There's a lot of different things about his career where he was up on stage and he's performing and then he has a lady fake a heart attack and then he shows up with like an Indian headdress and does some weird dance. And then everybody legitimately in the audience thinks this lady's dead. Like she's died from a heart attack. And then she pops up. And he never considered himself a comedian. He said he was an entertainer. That was it. He was a song and dance man. So there's a lot of stuff here on YouTube. You can go check out more stuff. I highly recommend Man on the Moon. I highly recommend the Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond. That's the documentary about filming Man on the Moon. But on that note, thanks for watching. Make sure you click and like, subscribe, click the bell down below so then you get the notifications when we go on live, get new videos. Also, comment down below if there's anything about Andy Kaufman that you felt we probably should have put in here because there's a whole lot in his career that we did not include in this video. If we got anything wrong or if there's a specific topic that you would like us to cover, put that down below.